5-0's about right, isn't it?
Yeah, as Ali said, it could have been 7, and it was only one team. It was a lesson. It was a lesson of football. I feel a little bit for Inter Milan fans, players, and everything, because you come to the final, you want it to be memorable, and you want to leave some memories and prides and everything, and you have nothing. I mean, that's a shame. That's a shame for them, but because of the talent of Paris Saint-Germain, and there is nothing else to do but cry at the end of the game for those players and those fans. Paris Saint-Germain were too strong. They did what they had to do. And I'm so happy for players like Marquinhos, for example. He was the only one left since they lost the first Champions League final. But what a game. And when you see doué, I just want to say to the audience, doué in French means gifted.
Nice.
So it says a lot.
Apt.
And for the young
Is that nominal
Mayalou,
determinism?
yeah, exactly.
Where you're named after, your name suits you.
Oh, wow.
Like if you were a butcher, for example,
Yeah,
Frank
my
Leboeuf
name
would be,
it would be perfect.
Anyway,
yeah, well done. But you have to be happy for Mayalou, of course. Born in 2006. What an experience, and it makes you growing up very quickly. But they did everything they had to do. I mean, in the conservation of the ball, the positioning of the ball, the counter-attack, everything was perfect. Even at 4-0, Donnarumma had made a save.
Yep.
Everybody was spot on. There is nothing to complain about.
It's interesting, Ali. As a neutral, maybe you want a tight, exciting affair, maybe like we saw into Barcelona in the semi-final. But still, despite a fan who wants to see that, you can only admire the quality that PSG put on in this show.
It was the definition of a backside whooping.
Yeah.
And I mean a whooping by PSG. They were better in every facet of the game from very early on. There were a few sequences in the first 5 to 10 minutes in which I thought, Inter are in trouble here. The dominance of the ball by PSG through the midfield, and the many times in which Vitinha was allowed to step on the ball, turn one way, step on the ball, go the other way, step on the ball, go this way, step on the ball, go that way, and be able to then complete passes out of pressure and still maintain possession and still be creating opportunities. Inter were never close enough to PSG to impact the way that PSG were going to play. And if you allow Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz and Neves time and space to create, to pass the ball, to have possession with a purpose. And then you have the isolation and mismatches in wide areas with Doué, with Dembele, with Kvaratskhelia. Inter were never going to be able to keep up. They were sort of kind of hanging on, okay, we're going to be defensive, we're going to be behind the ball. But even behind the ball, they were allowing time and space. And it's something that we discussed yesterday in previewing this match. Do not think of Inter coming into this match as Inter of years past, that they were so very solid defensively. They have not been that at all this season, and they have not been that at all in this competition. Remember all the goals allowed against Barcelona. Remember the chances allowed against Bayern Munich. And PSG exposed all of that. All of that in every single facet of the game, in every single space on the field. PSG were significantly better than Inter. What a performance.
In that manner, I'm sorry, if I can emphasize the work of somebody like Vitinha. Everybody's going to remember who scored the goal, who made the assist. Vitinha made one, gave a Super Bowl to Doué before he made the assist. But the work he does, we used to call those players
Warriors?
Water carrier.
Oh, okay.
And because they were working in the shadow of the stars and everything, getting the ball back, giving it to the stars. Didier Deschamps was the perfect example of that, knowing exactly what he had to do. Vitinha has all the tools you need to become one of the best players in the world in that positioning, where he knows technically what he has to do. Physically, he's strong. He never gives up, gets back, get the ball back, and serves the forwards. He was the best player for me on the field today. Right. But of course, he's not going to get the player of the game because people score goals like Doué, and you want to see that. But remember, if you want to play in that position, if you're a young player, to watch what Vitinha was capable of doing in the Champions League final.
Robert, where did Luis Enrique get this so right?
Well, as PSG have done for most of the season since they started to play very well, it was the rotation in midfield, because Inter, what they do, they play zonal marking, on zonal defending. So the three midfield players stay in position and they shuffle across the field. But because PSG kept on rotating their positions and finding no space down the side of Çalhanoğlu, and when they tried to get tight, they played around the pressure. It was so easy for PSG to play. They got everything right. And then when, again, Inter had to come out that little bit more in the second half and try and press the ball, then they put their wing-backs high up the field, and then PSG got it into the front players with more quality. And then the front players went past their markers so easy. There was so much space to play. They were dominant in every facet of the game. And when they were put under pressure, and Frank will know about this, the two centre-halves dropped 30 yards back and said, OK, if you're going to put us under pressure, we'll go back to the centre-halves and we'll start again. So Inter, whatever they did was the wrong thing. When they tried to press the ball, they got played around and it went into the front players. When they dropped deeper, they got played around then. So Inter were very, very poor. But you have to say, PSG got everything right. Their finishing, their movement, their speed on the counter-attack when they needed to, their passing, their one-touch, absolutely brilliant.
Very early on, and again, I go back to the sequences of Vitinha stepping on the ball. There were other things to see from Inter that were concerning right away. So they're sitting back, and they're absorbing a lot of pressure. PSG happen to lose the ball, or they shoot the ball wide, or whatever the case may be. Now is an opportunity for you to release some pressure if you're Inter. They decide to, you know what? PSG is all over us, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to play the ball short. We complete a couple of passes, and then because we cannot withstand this pressure, we then turn the ball over and give the ball right back to PSG in an attacking position. And so it's one of the things that we highlighted of Inter coming into this match that could be problematic for PSG is experience, know-how. They have been here before. They know what this feels like. It did not show at all whatsoever in their performance and the lack of understanding what the game needed at certain moments. Very early on, if you're under pressure, stop messing with the ball around here. Why turn the ball over here and you're inviting more and more pressure, more and more problems? It was surprising to see how Inter was unable to process information, to know that the game called for something else. And then the guys that were supposed to be a strength for Inter in the midfield, guys that you think that when they get on the ball, Inter becomes far more dangerous because now you can spring the counter-attacker opportunity with Marcos Thuram and Lautaro Martinez. You needed to get Barella involved. You needed to get Çalhanoğlu involved. You needed to get Mkhitaryan involved. And I'm only going to mention Mkhitaryan this one time because that's the one time that he participated in the game. You never even saw that this player was on the field. Çalhanoğlu, nowhere to be seen. So no possession through the midfield, turning the ball coming out of the back, no hold-up play up front, and PSG is all over you. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to get destroyed, and they did.
Talk to me about Doué, Frank. Where's he come from?
He's come from Paris. He played for Rennes a couple of years, and he's still a very young player.
Yeah.
I like on top of all his talent is the way he wanted to learn and been discreet enough to work hard. And he's a great player.
Yeah.
He's to play 1-2 touches because it means that you saw everything, and it's what Désiré Doué. Désiré means desired. Desired, wow. Gifted.
Gifted desire, there we are.
So imagine, he has the name to be successful.
I know, it's like Stuart Robson.
What? I'm sorry, what?
Right, Robbo, $1 million question, I suppose. Could this have happened if Kylian Mbappe was still in the team?
Ooh.
Well, the work rate wouldn't have been the same, would it? In down one side of the field, and maybe he'd have influenced others not to work quite so hard. But this is a team performance. I don't think they would have been as good with Mbappe in the side. I know he's an outstanding player and he's done well at scoring goals this season for Real Madrid, but you see their work rate hasn't been good enough. And if one player doesn't work hard and doesn't close things down, then other players can't get as tight. They can't back up that player because, you know, he's not going to work hard enough. And all around the pitch, the work rate, the energy, the athleticism of the PSG players was magnificent. And they made good decisions, whether a young team, an experienced team. They made the right decisions when to go and close down, when to drop off, when to keep the ball, when to play one touch, when to go back to their centre-halves and start again. It was the all-round performance. But one thing I would say about Inter, when I looked at them coming onto the field after, and Ali's just mentioned, in the first 5 or 10 minutes, I think there was a lot of players out there that weren't fully fit. Pavard shouldn't have been on the field. Lautaro Martinez hasn't played for a little while, hasn't been at his best. He didn't look fully fit. Thuram didn't look fully fit. There was a lot of players that couldn't cope with the athleticism of PSG.
I want to talk about Inter and their frailties and where it went wrong for them in a moment, but just going back to the Kylian Mbappe question.
That's tricky because, of course, everybody can recognize the talent that he has. But I always say, it's more difficult for a coach to build a team when you have a superstar.
Right.
And always been.
So it's interesting. Like you look at this team, and Dembele obviously has done really well, but he didn't have the greatest of games, and it didn't really matter today, did it?
No, because the commitment of Dembele has been spot on. And that's what we've been criticizing Mbappe, because when you lose the ball, you don't do the job. And it was the same for others. And when they were the three of them, with Messi, we all know that he never did that, but he had the players around him to be acceptable. But for Paris Saint-Germain, when they were the three, Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi, that was too much. The team was cut in half almost, and it was always the same. Yeah, okay, you get the ball back and you give us the ball, and we try to make the difference. It doesn't work like that, especially nowadays. But it's always been like that.
What do you mean, especially nowadays? Are we seeing the era of a superstar maybe being diluted now more?
I mean, we put players in another pedestal at some point, like we go to statistics, and as soon as a player scores a goal, if he's a forward player, he had a good game. It's not enough for me. I mean, maybe it works that way. I don't know. But you can talk about it because you were a striker.
But like Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, the standout solo talents that we've seen over the last 30 years.
They had the players to compensate their non-involvement in when they didn't have the ball, and they knew it. But put Ronaldo in the Paris Saint-Germain squad 2 years ago, that would have been the same problem.
With Messi, Neymar.
Yeah, that would have been the same problem. And it's a lesson for football.
Right.
That it's today Paris Saint-Germain. We say Craig was naming them the circus. But for the first time, they don't have superstars, and they win the Champions League.
Right.
And they have a team, and they play well, and they can compete against City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Aston Villa, and Inter Milan.
Yeah.
And they are the best team in the world because they don't have a superstar. So we have to stop building superstars, because superstars, they have to stop thinking they are superstars, because they have to do the bad work, the dirty work, which means defending, helping the others.
Mbappe in that starting 11 today, are we having a different conversation?
Well, they may have won the game, but not in the manner in which they did. And I know we're going to talk about Inter later, but it's also a very poor reflection on Inter's performance. PSG were outstanding, Inter not so much. And going back to PSG and the conversation of Kylian Mbappe, you keep mentioning the word superstar. I think what has happened is because we've been treated to Ronaldo and Messi, they leave the main stage. And so we have this desperation to put somebody else on that stage. Here's the problem. They have their own stage. They have their own level. And so teams will accommodate their performances according to Lionel Messi because of what he was at his very best. And so that's why when he plays with Argentina, everybody sacrifices because they say, this guy is worth that sacrifice. What I would suggest is Kylian Mbappe, as good as he may be, he is not worth that sacrifice because he is not at the level of Lionel Messi. But we have this desperation of, well, these guys have cleared the stage, so it must be Mbappe, the one that is going to take it on. It must be Neymar that is going to take it on. It's going to be this guy or the other that is going to take it on. Good luck with that, because that standard is completely separate and completely unrealistic. As it pertains to PSG today, specific examples as to what would not have happened if Kylian Mbappe had been on the field. It was 3-0. They were up already 3-0. Kvaratskhelia sprinting 60 yards to get ahead of the attacking player, I think it was Dumfries, who was trying to get in behind. The game was already 3-0. You could be thinking about celebrating. You can be thinking about winning. But it's the mentality of PSG and players like Kvaratskhelia that will run and chase 60 yards so that they can win a ball that essentially would have been meaningless. But yet there is something to be said about the sacrifice that these players are willing to make. Doué was doing the same thing down the right-hand side. Dembele tracking players. There's something to be said about the mentality of a group in which you have players that traditionally haven't been the hardest working players in defensive position, tracking back and making the defensive plays that are needed. That is credit to the individual player, but it's also credit to the mentality that and the example that is being set forth and demanded by the manager, Luis Enrique.
To Robbo's point, when you have someone like Mbappe, who isn't tracking back, who isn't putting the work rate in, does it filter through to other players?
Of course. Of course, and we are targeting Mbappe, but I'm sorry, this season we can target also Vinicius Junior.
Sure.
Of course, because we saw what happened to Real Madrid, and that was the perfect example to what we used to see with Paris Saint-Germain, what we saw in Real Madrid, because you don't have some players compensating the fact that those two players weren't defending. But of course, you create something, a scar, a kind of a scar inside the dressing room, where the players, they say, well, I'm fed up running for that guy. Yeah, he's a star. Yeah, he does the job, but at some point, he doesn't help us out. And it would have been, and I say that with Marquinhos, Thiago Silva, when Mbappe was in Paris Saint-Germain, they should have said something in the dressing room and sort out the problem. It would have happened the same that way if I would have been playing for Paris Saint-Germain in the 90s. And I tell you, Didier Deschamps, Marcel Desailly, they would have never accepted somebody not doing the job.
It's interesting, we look at that graphic that was just up, and this isn't a fairy tale of lots of youngsters coming through the youth system. They have picked exactly the right players, despite the fact that, they've spent a lot of money on young players, as someone like Chelsea have done as well.
Yeah.
But what they've done, they seem to have got it right. Much more than they've got it wrong.
And credit to Luis Enrique. I mean, the guy, we remember the Paris Saint-Germain that we saw at the beginning of the season, that wasn't the same. And suddenly something clicked, and they absolutely, since then, been perfect. But in contrary with Chelsea, you still have Marquinhos. Right. You still have Fabian Ruiz. I mean, with the experience that he has. Some players, Ousmane Dembele is not a young player for me. He's a player with experience. And that mix of players committing together creates a difference.
Robert, how much has it helped Luis Enrique that overall, you mentioned some of the veteran players, but overall this is quite a young squad. Not impressionable, but obviously ones that will maybe listen more than some of the older players.
Yeah, and I'm going to just quickly go back to something you were saying. When we talked about the superstars, Ronaldo and Messi, let me say, when they were young players, when Barcelona won the Champions League at Wembley and they beat Manchester United on the previous occasion, Messi would run around. He could not do it when Pep Guardiola was the manager. He had to press the ball. He had to win it back. So he did that. Ronaldo did it at Manchester United. It was only when they became superstars and goal scorers, out-and-out goal scorers, they all went, but he doesn't have to work anymore. He doesn't have to track back, doesn't have to close the ball down. And it all came about today. And Ali was talking about the fact that Inter couldn't get out. Who was the first player to make it predictable where Inter were going to play? It was Dembele. He sprinted towards Sommer on time and time again and made Sommer play to Bastoni. Bastoni had to play it to Di Marco, but it told the rest of the players, this is where the ball's going to go. We can go and close it down. We're going to win it back. So it all started with the work rate. And I'm not talking about tracking back. I'm talking about going and closing the ball down. Be intelligent when you're closing down. And that's exactly what Dembele did today.
Right then, let's focus on Inter, Robbo. Where did it go wrong? What was the biggest mistake they made?
Well, I said it over the last week or so. You can't press the ball if you play with 5 at the back, 3 in central midfield and 2 up front, because PSG were always going to have a ball out to the wide areas. They could get Mendes going forward. They could get Hakimi going forward. They had to, in midfield, if they were going to go and press, they had to get tight to people. They couldn't go at half pace and get played around like they did. And they couldn't just stay in their shape. They had to, at times, come out and go and mark people rather than just holding their shape, because PSG had complete control of the ball and their rotation played into the spaces where the Inter players weren't, and it was far too easy. So they needed to get at least one of their wing-backs much higher up the field so they could go and press the ball. They didn't get it into their front players, and Ali just said it again, and I've just said one of the reasons why they didn't do it. But they had to play forward much, much quicker. There was once in the first half, after about 10 minutes, when they went down the left-hand side and they played a ball down the side for Thuram. He held it up. It went to Martins. They went out wide. Dumfries got across into the box. That's what they're good at doing when they play at their best. They didn't get the ball into the front areas with enough quality early enough to cause the 2 centre-halves of PSG a problem. So they got it all wrong, despite how good PSG were. Inter got everything wrong in the game.
A couple of compliments that I suppose I have to give. Yesterday, Ali, I thought you made a good point.
Oh, thank
when
you.
we showed the starting 11 that lost against Manchester City. You were like, that team is much better than this team going into this final. And Frank, you highlighted the fact that this isn't the same Inter Milan that we're normally used to seeing. And obviously you went for a big PSG victory as well. Did we get a little hung up on that performance against Barcelona or the manner of the victory and a little hung up on the name on the shirt as opposed to analysing what this team is really like?
I think we went too far away, going to the history of the club, right. and also the fact that what they did before that Barcelona game, where made them, and I was part of them, part of those people who thought that they were solid. I thought they were solid. And when I said that yesterday, when I saw the 2 games against Barcelona, I discovered that it wasn't the case, in fact, and they were too open. And you were asking the question to Robo, what went wrong? They tried to compete against Paris Saint-Germain, where they don't have the same talents.
And they're old.
And the older, be nice, the olders, and they should have played, long ball, like old football, and be squeezed together and maybe try to press a little bit higher, but we're not trying to play the ball from the back because it doesn't work against Paris Saint-Germain, and they've been punished because of that. And be solid at the back just to wait for the right time and the right moment for an Italian team like they used to play. And they tried to play football. They've been, I have to say, I'm sorry, they've been murdered by Paris Saint-Germain today.
Yep. And Ali will say, well, actually, this could have happened against Bayern Munich.
It's been the point that I've been trying to make all along.
I was listening.
Thank you. That's right. Thank you. Somebody was. That Inter have had a tremendous amount of luck to get to this point. Look, I'll take you back. You just mentioned Bayern Munich. I'll take you back. A chance, 100% chance, that falls to whom in Bayern Munich? Harry Kane. Harry Kane. And he misses a sitter. And you think about the matches against Barcelona and how outplayed they were and how lifeless they were in that second half, in which guys like Marcos Thuram and Lautaro Martinez were dragging their feet. They were dead. And somehow they came back. And credit to them. But there was an element of good fortune that at some point was going to run out, and it was going to be exposed by outstanding individual and group performances. This is what we saw from PSG today. And to the point that Robo was making in terms of how Inter go about defending, or they could have gone about defending PSG. Look, if you're going to play with a back 3, and really PSG has the one striker, Dembele, that sometimes even drops off, then you have extra players in the back line. So why not Bastoni step into the middle? Why not Acerbi step into the middle every once in a while? Why not Benjamin Pavard to help out the 3 guys in the midfield that in their best day, right now, cannot keep up with the passing game of PSG? So you think about Çalhanoğlu. It's not what he does, going and trying to close the ball down. Mkhitaryan, same thing. Barella, he has a little bit more fight about him. But if you're going to influence the play of PSG through the midfield, you needed to get help. And these center backs are sitting in behind the midfield 3, and they're just kind of like, oh, we're just going to sit here, we got it all covered. No, if you're free and you have a chance to step into a passing lane and make it more difficult for PSG, it should have been something that Inter was willing to do, and yet they seem afraid to do.
They should have cut off the communication between Vitinha and the rest. Put the player on Vitinha,
right,
to make sure that that target is cancelled from the possibilities of Paris Saint-Germain. They didn't do that. In the contrary, we didn't see Barella, we didn't see Lautaro Martinez. They've been cut off for the rest of the team, and that's the thing. That's where you have to work on, and the coach didn't do that. You get people who provide the others, and you cancel those players. Maybe you have a chance to win.
Robbo, you take a look at Inter. There was talks of obviously a quadruple. At one stage this season, and everything over the last couple of months has just fallen apart for them.
It certainly has. It certainly did in Serie A when their chances to go and win games, they didn't perform. At times they've looked a tired team in these last few weeks. They've had a lot of injuries as well, and players have been playing that I don't think were fully fit. As I said today, I think there was 4 or 5 players out there that weren't fully fit, and that's one of the reasons they didn't want to go and close the ball down, because they were anxious about the game. And going back to Ali's point, brilliant point that he made, when they played Man City 2 years ago, and they made it difficult for Man City in the Champions League final, those players, Bastoni, and I'm not sure who played on the right-hand side of the back 3, came out and helped their midfield players out, and they made it difficult for Man City that night. Today, I would say Inter were frightened of the game. Too many players were frightened of the athleticism of PSG and were frightened they were going to get played around, so they just stood in positions and hoped for the best, and it cost them dear.
Say the second leg of the Inter-Barcelona game was the final. Mm-hmm. Say this obviously was the final. Which losing team would you prefer to be on? Which hurts more? The manner in which Barcelona lost, of course, with that late dramatic win for Inter, or being completely outplayed for the 90 minutes today?
Oh, at the final.
Really?
For me,
today?
Yeah, what do you think? For me, the final. I mean, you.
And he's saying that both of them would have been fine.
Yeah. Like the manner of a defeat. Would you prefer to lose like this, where you're not looking back and going, oh, if only we did that, or if only we did this, where it's just one mistake, or to be in the situation where you were beaten by a better team?
For me, even if you lose at 94th minute a game and you can have regrets, you can get some pride out of it.
Oh, okay.
Today, for me, they were nowhere near it. It's a shame. You will never watch the game anymore, and you don't want to hear about it anymore. That's the thing. And you belong to the history of the record of the team who lost the most. Mm-hmm. That's a shame, where you should be proud of getting into the Champions League. So few people have the chance to do that. I never had a Champions League final, and I was envious to Inter Milan players to have that, but to lose that way, I prefer to be here with you guys, that's, for me, that's shameful.
What about you, Ali?
Oh, I would rather get my backside handed to me.
Oh, really? You're the opposite?
Look, if I'm an Inter player right now, there is no doubt in my mind that team that we played against is better than us. We may have made it closer. We could have perhaps made it closer. But on the whole, that team is better than we are. And I have no issues accepting that. I would have far more issues if indeed it was close, and if it came down to one play here, one play there, one decision here, one refereeing decision there. I would be thinking about that for the rest of my life. This one, I would turn the page rather quickly, because let me just say, 5-0 is as definitive as it gets.
Robbo, you have the deciding vote.
Yeah, I'm going to go against Ali on this one. If you were a Barcelona player in that game against Inter and you came off the field, most of the players probably had an 8 out of 10. Not the defenders, but most of the midfield players and the attacking players were 8 out of 10. They enjoyed the game. They played brilliantly. They didn't enjoy the result, and they're frustrated. These Inter players, when people talk about the Champions League Final of 2025, oh, you played in that, and not one of them can hold their head up and say, I played okay today. Not one of them, because they were outplayed. It's an embarrassment almost.
Is it Ali's day today? Because he's not with me or for me, he's against Ali on that matter. And you had 2 compliments from the guy, from Dan. And,
from the guy?
From the guys.
Yes.
From Dan and from Robo, so it's all about you. Is that your birthday?
Are you jealous?
I'm a little bit envious.
Okay. All right.
Jealous.
You need a hug or something?
No. You say that he's against you. Well, you could have said I'm for Frank. Whatever.
Whatever.
I'm Frank.
Okay, that's too late.
The only problem, Frank, is I can't understand you.
Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, join the club. Let's go back to PSG and what this means. You look at the list: Carlo Ancelotti, Laurent Blanc, Unai Emery, Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Pochettino. What has Luis Enrique done that the others didn't to get this across the line, Robbo?
Well, he's earlier on in the season, I thought he was going to have the same problems he had when he was the Spain manager. Lots of passing, but going nowhere. But what he's done, he's decided that I've got to have more athleticism in the front areas. I've got to get front players that are going past people. He's got to take a lot of credit for changing the way he's played the game, because when he was manager, I saw him at Roma, too much passing at times. When he was manager of Barcelona, when they won the Champions League, they were a good side. They had plenty of pace going forward. But in recent times, although he's been a decent manager, he's been criticised for too much passing, not enough penetration. What he's done since that game against Man City in the second half there, when they got back from being 2-0 down, he's changed the way they play, the philosophy. We've got to be more penetrative. We've got to play more balls forward. We've got to go past people with the ball, not just about keeping the ball. So he's got to take a lot of credit for changing his philosophy as well.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a poison chalice, hasn't it, for managers in the past, as we mentioned. Of course, you've got to deal with Messi, Neymar and Mbappe, but still you've got to take your hat off as to what Enrique has done over the last 6 months. Yeah,
but you need to digest the past. And this one maybe happened to the rest of the players with Luis Enrique to get rid of the past and get to a new Paris Saint-Germain. But I know what the board did. Who knew Paris Saint-Germain in 2010? They weren't there. We weren't talking about them in Europe. We were talking about Ligue 1, okay, but know the Paris Saint-Germain. So what did Qatar? They bought big players, big-time players. We saw Pastore before the game, giving with Zanetti putting the cap. Then after you had Thiago Silva, you had Ibrahimovic, all those big players who came, and of course Neymar, Messi, Mbappe, to make sure that you knew who was or what was Paris Saint-Germain at the time. And now is the time to win. And now is the time to build something we can be competitive.
Yeah,
and
but to that question, does that now set a precedent for PSG? We talk about the youth of this side, a lot of exciting youngsters there.
Hopefully, but it's like Barcelona. It's a complete copy of what we see with Barcelona. Barcelona, they have young players, and it's encouraging to see what you can achieve with them. And you have to build with that and with those players, and for kind of a decade. And to see Paris Saint-Germain, Barcelona being at the top of the top in Europe should also indicate to the others the way to be successful.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen in cup competitions. Best team won, didn't they, overall?
Absolutely it did. And let me just address Luis Enrique for a second there. One, there's no doubt as to who is making the decisions in terms of personnel and players to be chosen to be on the field, and decisions that have to do with PSG on the field. Obviously and clearly, without any doubt, it's Luis Enrique. There isn't a question of the manager is making a decision, but the players are going above the manager to go and talk to the bosses, right? None of that.
There's no Neymar behavior.
No Neymar, no Mbappe, none of that. And so we know who the boss is and who the decision maker is, and that's Luis Enrique. In the evolution of Luis Enrique, and I think that's important, it's something that Stewie alluded to. You think back to Spain, 2022 World Cup, and how they went out to Morocco. And that Spain team was sideways and back and sideways and back. And we go this way and we go that way and we go this way and we go that way. And there was never there penetrating passes. They weren't even looking for it. Luis Enrique was the manager of that team. So there had to be some soul searching for Luis Enrique. This may have been the way that I was brought up in the game. This may be the way that perhaps my teams have been comfortable. But to Stewie's point, when they won with Barcelona Champions League, there was this as well. And he has implemented that with PSG. But in order to implement that with PSG, you have to have the players ahead of the ball that are willing to make their runs. And so while it's great to have Vitinha, and absolutely you're correct about his performance today, not only is it great to have Vitinha because he's a guy that keeps the momentum of the game and keeps the rhythm of the game, but he's also willing to find that through pass. And that through pass has runners in front of it. That's why PSG becomes so difficult to defend against.
Like Ali's through pass.
Yeah, but the Doué pass, the pass to Doué, was exactly what it is. You know, cut the lines, you know, and create spaces for the players who just need to either score or pass to assist Hakimi. That was perfection, and it's what I love as well. Vertical.
A full house, of course, in Munich, and they got to witness history once again, which they've done quite a lot in the past, in fact, when it comes to first-time winners of this competition. Chelsea did it in 2012, Dortmund in 97, Marseille, Frank.
Marseille, 93, yeah.
And Nottingham Forest in 1979, first-time winners in Munich. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Ali's here, Frank as well. Robbo joins us. I don't think we got a question on this, so I will start with this question because it was quite interesting when Hakimi didn't celebrate that opening goal, Robbo, because of course he used to play for Inter. Frank was not a happy boy. It's like the Champions League Final. Celebrate.
Absolutely, I agree with Frank. You know, you left the club. You know, for whatever reason you left the club, whether they got rid of you or you went to what you thought were better things. You moved for a reason. You score a goal, and it's a great goal. You open the score in the Champions League. You want to celebrate. In England, they were saying it's very classy. Just celebrate the goal. Yeah. You don't play for that club anymore.
No sentiment from Robert.
I remember. What is the centre back played for Paris Saint-Germain and Chelsea after, then came back to Paris Saint-Germain with Silva. Luis Silva, you know the hairy guy?
Fullback, yeah.
The fullback, yeah. No,
David
fullback.
Luiz.
David Luiz. Thank you, yeah. David Luiz. He scored a goal in the Champions League against Paris Saint-Germain in the last minute.
Right.
And celebrated.
Right.
And he's totally right.
Would you have celebrated against Marseille?
Of course.
Against Strasbourg?
Of course.
Really?
In front of the chairman. Say you got rid of me, or you didn't want me, or I don't know, I left and good for me.
What about against the Qatari 11 that picked
Well, maybe, but I'm not sure about that. But no, but you have the right to enjoy.
Right.
I mean, you don't belong to the club anymore if you have respect. And that was crazy. He immediately thought about that.
Right. What?
He was like prepared. How can you prepare? You score a goal in Champions League. Enjoy.
Ali, you did it. You celebrated, obviously, when you scored. didn't you, against...
Are you kidding me? Of course. I
Yeah.
was traded so many times. I had so many former teams. Doesn't really matter. You score the goal, you celebrate. But what was funny about that is that he goes and gives the old, like, apologizing to the Inter fans because he scored. And then there are some Inter fans who are seeing this guy score against you, and they're, like, clapping for him, like, yeah, thanks for the appreciation. Are you kidding me?
That's diplomatic.
What about the big guy crying?
Oh my
big
God,
Inter
that
fan
was
crying.
sad. That was sad.
Oh, no,
that
he's-
is always sad.
He's going to be famous
don't
now,
wanna
isn't
see
he?
fans play.
For the wrong reasons. Robbo, have you ever witnessed a more lopsided final across any competition? Also, has anyone heard from Don? Well, Don is still confused as to what Bruno should do.
Yeah.
Robbo, you mentioned the
Don still-
2011 final. That scoreline wasn't quite what this was, but that was very much men against boys, Barca against United.
Yeah. And if you want to go back to, you said any final, you talked about Champions League or any final, there was when Manchester City beat Watford
Wigan.
6-0 in the
Wigan.
FA Cup
Wasn't it Wigan?
4 or
Oh, no, it
5
was
years. No, it was Watford. Watford 6-0, and the game was all over after about 20 minutes. So it was very hard to commentate on because it wasn't a contest. I think I enjoyed watching the game where it was AC Milan that beat Barcelona in the final, the Champions League final, or European Cup, I think it was then, 4-0.
Yeah.
And they completely dominated Barcelona. It was an outstanding performance when Gullit was at his best, Van Basten, and all those sort of players. So,
And
that was
Marcel.
another one where it was one-sided.
And Marcel Desailly scoring the
You
fourth
love
goal.
Marcel Desailly.
But the curve, I mean, Marcel Desailly was like a number 10 that day.
What springs to mind, Frank? One-sided finals? Anything?
No, nothing.
Nothing more than
that Barcelona, Milan.
Barcelona, Milan.
You know, yeah.
Ali?
Well, it's not a final, but we go back to Brazil in Brazil 2014 World Cup.
You can't just do semi. You can't pick games, Ali.
Well, I'm just
No,
saying,
it's not
in
the
a
question.
final stage of a
No, it's the
competition.
semi-final. It doesn't count.
Well, okay.
1970, Brazil against
Yeah.
Italy.
yeah.
4-1, I think.
There you go. Robbo, you're alive for that.
I was, but it wasn't all one-sided. It took him a long time to get into the lead in that game. But I thought Frank was going to say the World Cup when he won it. 3-0 against Brazil, one-sided.
It could have been
That's what he was gonna
6-1.
say.
It could have been
Say-
6-1, really.
May I say,
I'm all behind you, Frank.
in the Barcelona Manchester United,
Yes.
even though the scoreline was not what this was, what was most impressive is that was a really, really good Manchester United team.
Yeah.
And they were made to look like they did not belong. I think it's different in this one in that the difference between PSG was huge to Inter. It should not have been the case between Barcelona and that version of Manchester United.
We discussed this at length, obviously, in the show, but a lot of people asking once again, Frank, how is it possible that a club wins the Champions League and they let players like Messi and Mbappe go?
Because, again, we have to know football. You have to know that football is not about one person. It's not about superstar. We created like the world, the society, individualities. And we have to stop that. Football is a collective sport where it's, we still have in rugby. You English, I'm French. We know that rugby is important in our culture, that it says a lot about how to work together. In American football, you can have that also, the first line saving the quarterback. But you have to protect the quarterback in order for him to deliver, and you need the big guys at front. And it's what you need in football also, in soccer, where you need to have basics. And we forgot that. And Messi and Mbappe or Neymar, they didn't help the rest of the team. And it's a big lesson to football, but it's a big lesson to media. We have to stop to make people thinking that one player can save a team.
No, but there is something special about an individual within a team sport that shines.
But always
Like,
been.
if you look at what we've talked about over the
But
last
they
3
still
months.
have to. They still have to work for the team, though.
Yeah,
They still have to work for the team, though, Dan.
yeah. What I'm saying is,
the
if over
demise
the
of
last-
Juventus started.
Look Zidane, like Pelé before, like Cruyff,
Right.
like
But what I'm saying
Platini.
is-
They help the
It's
team.
individuals that sell sport, not teams.
No, of course, because they can make the difference.
Exactly.
But
we've spent more time speaking about Lamine Yamal than any other player over the last 3 months, and for a reason.
yeah, of course, and rightly so.
Right.
But Lamine Yamal wouldn't do the defensive job. I can tell you, it would be hammered by the others.
But you can't come in as the media police and say you can't talk about him because you need to talk
No,
about...
you can talk about him in a
Martinez.
fair way. In a fair way. Not only, we all agree that Mbappe has been pichichi, that's what you say, this season.
Yes.
Was it enough?
No.
No, but we have to talk about that. Right. We have to explain to the people, because we are legit for that. We've been players to know what everybody has to do in the football world and what is wrong. And that's wrong. When you don't defend because you're a striker, you lose the ball and you don't care. Like, okay, the guy's behind you, get the ball back. We are not their servants. We are not their employees. We work together, and they have to do the part of the job.
So since this is a team sport, who's going to win the Ballon d'Or?
Oh my God. Lamine Yamal.
Right, where are we? Oh, it's on here, isn't it? I got distracted.
Are you checking your email? Instagram? What are you checking? Whoa.
My DMs.
Whoa.
What's what? Calm down. Is it time? Wait. See, if I get it printed out
I
and
thought
I
it
can
says
see.
PSG favorites for FIFA World Club.
PSG favourites. That's not even on here.
Oh yeah.
I do. It's
Well, I
on
mean,
there.
PSG favourites to win the Club World Cup.
Who cares?
Who cares? Ali?
Well, no, Real Madrid, because they really care.
Oh
about this
yeah, they do
competition.
care. Yeah.
Robbo?
I didn't quite hear the question, but there's only one team that really is desperate, and that's Real Madrid at the moment. This is going to be the saviour of their season, apparently.
Yes,
you know,
indeed.
getting all their players in and winning it, and great start for Xavi Alonso. Surely, that's what's going to happen.
Let's take a look at the next question, shall we? That's coming up. If Dembele doesn't win Ballon d'Or, does the award itself lose all credibility?
But he never had any credibility. It doesn't mean anything, the Ballon d'Or. Come on, people.
Who invented-
Random. First, when your name is random, you're
Who invented this award?
a French people.
Yeah.
I play. What do you say? I said we're guilty for that. No problem.
Yes.
But we created European Cup. All the European Cup, and there was the first World Cup, Jules Rimet Trophy, that was French as well.
Okay.
You created football.
Right, yes,
We
sir.
created trophies.
Okay.
But that's stupid. Ballon d'Or is stupid. That's
Okay.
an insult to our sport. People stop listening, watching that evening. It's stupid. It's an insult to football, to soccer. Please ban it.
Wow. There's nowhere to go after that. So
Frank,
oh, go on,
Yeah.
Robbo.
Frank, if you won the Ballon d'Or, would you give it back?
No, I would never. I would have never gotten it. It's like I always say: if I get an Oscar or I get a Molière in a play, I will never take it because
Boo, that's lies.
No, that's not a lie. And that's
You
not a
would
lie.
take it.
Because of my partner, I became good. But without my partner, I mean nothing. And that's my philosophy of the sport, of the movies industry, and the theater industry.
I was going to vote for you, and now.
No, but don't worry. They don't want me because they already know that I don't want it. So they're not going to
So
put
when
me
you
there.
get your appearance fee for your World Cup winning chat that you do or on a show,
Yeah.
do you then split the money that you receive with the whole squad?
Yes.
So you're Dancing with the Stars money.
Yeah.
You split that with the whole French World Cup winning squad.
No, because it's not because of them that I danced. You know?
But it's because of them that you're famous.
I made sure that my partner got a lot of money.
No, it's because of them that you're famous.
Yeah.
As a team, you won the World Cup.
I should do
Yet
that.
You're benefiting from it.
No, you're going too far, but a little bit too far, you know. But whatever.
We draw the line. We draw the line and Dancing with the
And
Stars.
really, I want to make sure that I want to tell people that my partners, my friends, you know, from the World Cup 1998, they don't need my money. They're okay.
No,
We're good with that. You know,
Well, most of them. But
No, they're all good.
So Dembele is not going to win it then?
I don't think he's going to win because I think Lamine Yamal is going to win.
All right, there you go.
Ali, is it time to consider Luis Enrique as a top elite coach? He didn't get as much spotlight at Barca because he succeeded Guardiola.
I mean, I think Luis Enrique has been in that conversation for a while, but if you didn't feel like he was quite there, I do believe that the job that he has done with PSG, with potentially the best player in the world walking out that door and this team becoming better under Luis Enrique, I think that elevates the profile of Luis Enrique to that elite level.
Stuart Robson?
Yeah, he becomes a top-class coach. He's, I think, one of only 3 managers that have won the treble twice at football clubs, or different football clubs. So he's right up there at the top, and he's changed his philosophy, and it's looking very good at the moment.
You know, that's a debate with it can be a debate with Pep Guardiola and the fact that Pep couldn't change the way he was thinking. Well, Luis managed to do so, where he was seeing that he couldn't achieve anything with that team at the beginning of the season. And I would have loved to see Guardiola being able to change the way of thinking. And I'm sorry, he didn't. I want to see what's going to be.
So if you were building a club tomorrow, who would you have managing? Pep Guardiola or Luis Enrique?
Well, I will have a discussion with Pep Guardiola, and if he wants to keep the way of thinking, no, not gonna get him. But yeah, Luis Enrique, 100% right now.
There we go. Yeah. Should Doué be a starter in the national team, Frank? Has he got 1 cap?
Doué, yes, he just started.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's gifted,
yep,
by the way.
Like gifted. Yeah, desired gifted.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he's going to be with the national team very soon, and he's going to stay for a long time if he keeps.
Should he be
working.
a starter? Is the question.
There is a big competition. There is a big competition at front, with Dembele, with of course Kylian Mbappe and some others. But yeah, and he can play also in different positions. He can be also.
So should he be a
10.
starter? Is the question.
Yes, he could be a starter if you want.
Should he be the starter?
Should he be? No, I'm not the coach, and Didier Deschamps
God,
knows
not the
exactly
coach.
what to do. Yes, you don't want me. Yeah. After the 2 goals, if the game is tomorrow, yeah, it should be.
Well, he's probably a bit tired, celebrating.
I don't care. Even drunk, I put him past 11.
Excuse me, what? I'm sorry, what?
Oh, no, we don't drink. Yeah, it's true.
Ali, how bad was Barca to concede 7 goals against his Inter side?
Yeah, this doesn't look good for Barcelona. It really doesn't.
Yeah, true.
But it didn't look good while it was happening.
No.
How vulnerable they were in set pieces, how vulnerable they were in moments of transition, how vulnerable that high line that we talked about the whole season, and how good Inter were about taking advantage of that high line. The worst thing about Barcelona in those 2 matches against Inter was when they go up late in the game that they decide they're not going to have enough numbers behind the ball because this is the way we play. Talk about not making an adjustment, in-game adjustment that was necessary. They see that game out. We have a completely different final between Barcelona and PSG. That wasn't the case, and that's on Barcelona.
That's it then, Robbo. The end of domestic football in England. What's your plans over the next couple of months then? Are you coming here?
I am coming to America on the 3rd to the 13th of July, and then I'm having a knee operation, a new knee put in on the 16th, and hopefully I'll be ready for the start of the season.
Oh, are you in the studio for a 3rd to the 13th, Robbo?
I am, yes. So I'll be pleased to be in your company, Dan,
10 days.
but more so Kate.
When is the Club World Cup?
A good question, Frank. I'm going to say June.
Okay.
June the what?
June the when? Sorry.
No, maybe it's Robo.
June the 14th. It starts.
Oh, that's for Don. Don is going to be there.
Yes, Don's getting paid to commentate there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he'll be all.
What a treat.